Imagine you're in the golden heart of ancient Egypt, where the Nile glitters under the sun, and the palaces are filled with incense, jewels, and whispers. You work in the royal court, brushing the hair of the pharaoh's own daughter. Every day your hands weave braids that will be seen by nobles, priests, and the gods themselves. But inside you carry a secret, a belief you cannot speak aloud. And in ancient Egypt, a secret like that can cost you and your children everything. This is the story of the hairdresser who faced one of the most brutal punishments in history and met it with unshakable courage. This is the tale of the hairdresser who endured the cruelest penance in all history and met it with unwavering courage. The year, lost in the sands of time, but the scene is familiar. The royal palace of Thebes, at a time when Egypt was a mighty power far beyond the desert. It was believed that the pharaoh was a living god. He himself was not only law, but also divine will. To doubt it was to doubt the system of the world itself. It was in this sacred court that a young woman toiled, a very ordinary person, who was just called the hairdresser to the Raj. No one could compete with her ability. She had the ability to intertwine gold wire into ebony locks, form elaborate festival styles, and perfume the hair with exotic, faraway oils. She ministered loyally to the daughter of the pharaoh, smiling, bowing, and listening to the laughter of court life. But behind that show of peace, there was a truth buried in her heart that conflicted with the rulings of the pharaoh. The hairdresser belonged to a religion that was not aligned with the state religion. She never spoke of it publicly. She kept it alive quietly. She told her secret in her silent prayers. She lived to the horizon in the manner of her looking, and she told her secrets in the stories she related to her children in the evening. She had 2 small sons of whom she was proud. She also taught them to be kind and humble, and that truth is something worth bitterly clinging to, even when it meant being apart from the crowd. But intrigue at court has a habit of erupting. One day, as preparations were being made for a grand festival to honor the gods of the pharaoh, the princess requested the hairdresser to participate in a blessing process. This was supposed to be an ordinary act of the people, acting to show allegiance to the ruler of God. And the hairdresser, with pounding heart, refused politely. This error seemed to the princess in the beginning to be a mistake. But when the hairdresser quietly confessed to having different beliefs, the atmosphere grew charged in the room. Servants froze. Guards at the door were looking at each other. News passed more quickly than the current of the Nile, and before long, even the pharaoh himself was aware of the fact. This was not only disobedience in the view of the pharaoh, it contained rebellion against the gods, and unrevenged, it may extend like a fissure in the stone of the temple. The judgment was hasty. The hairdresser and her children were to be put to death, not by the sword, never that, nor by exile, but by being boiled to death. A capital punishment was not selected simply to put an end to life, but to strike terror in the minds of all who may wish to set any example by following her. Wait before we proceed further. If you care about forgotten stories of courage just like this, then please click the subscribe button. In that manner, more people will learn the histories that do not always get into the books. It was as hot as it could be on the morning of the execution. People thronged, some out of curiosity, others out of anxiety. The guards of the royal palace escorted the hairdresser and her offspring through the gates of the palace on the way to the place of punishment. A boiling cauldron of copper awaited, with water that was already agitating with its heat. The odor of smoke perfumed the air. But there were witnesses who afterwards spoke of her face, calm, steady, her eyes looking not at the pot, but beyond. One more time the men of the pharaoh provided her an opportunity. Deny her beliefs and worship the state gods and survive. She refused, not in anger or words of storminess, but a gentle, unmoved, imperative no. Her terrified children clung to her tightly. And this is where her courage was the strongest. She advised them to be strong. That hurts go away. But the truth does not. They took away her oldest child. As the guards put the small figure down, they were forced into the boiling water, and the people left. They heard the cries of the child sounding in the courtyard, a sound that could not be obliterated by unfeeling soldiers. The hairdresser burst into tears, and the tears came freely onto her face, but she never retracted her words. And last of all was her baby. Too little to know, and old enough to fear. The guards thought twice, too. Even they became confused. Orders of the pharaoh were absolute. In another moment, the second child was lost. The whole crowd was silent, save the hissing of steam. Alone, she found herself now. She was asked by the executioners one final time. This was her chance to live, to walk away, although her children were gone. But she was self-conscious enough to realize that she was backsliding now, and not only quitting herself, but also betraying the memory of the sacrifice of her children. So she made a step. That burning sensation was immediate, but lasted not as long, witnesses said, as they anticipated that it would, in the case of a screaming woman. Others claimed that she wore a peaceful expression on her face. By the time the end was reached, the pharaoh had persisted. In awkward silence, the crowd broke. Instead of being a warning, the end result was really quite the opposite. The chanting of stories in homes and markets over the woman who would not bow, even though she paid the price with everything. In the course of time, her name was lost. Yet the tale of the hairdresser who defied the anger of Pharaoh lived on, borne about in the minds of those who had witnessed it and performed in the secret protest of others who think as she did. Grand battles, kings, and monuments litter history. However, in some cases, the biggest courage can be when an individual bravely remains silent in the face of the most immense force of their time. The life of the hairdresser, including her death, makes us recall that any kind of faith may empower an individual to be stronger than fear itself. Eventually, she was burnt to ashes by the fire of the pharaoh, but not her narrative. Did you feel more people deserve to hear tales like this, the ones lost to the sands of time? Well then, please like and share this with someone who enjoys history, and subscribe for more inspirational stories of bravery, fair play, and the human spirit. Small voices, as it were, after all, can sometimes echo thousands of years.